along with myself and members of the Diversity Council who have worked to put the event together, we invite you now to join us as we think, question, and act as an academic family in pursuit of equity, access, diversity, and justice. At this time, I would like to introduce our sponsors for this event. Mrs. Kay Bell, Executive Director of Anderson Education Foundation, and Mr. Randy Harrison, President of the Anderson Federation of Teachers.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Genghis Carter, who is the Director of the Office of Recruitment and Retention for Underrepresented Students in the Indiana University Bloomington School of Education. He is also an advisor, mentor, and former instructor with the Hudson and Holland Scholars Program. This one? Sorry. He's also an advisor, mentor, and former instructor with the Hudson and Holland Scholars Program.
If you know anything about me or may not know, I come from, or I have a family, one that I cherish dearly, that is grown and evolved into a very diverse family unit. So when I see the accolades and the credentials bestowed upon our guest speaker that you may see in the program, meaning the Balfour Scholarship Director at IU, and she's won numerous awards nationally for ensuring that Latino, African American students and students of all races and nationalities are successful. I think we've got the right people here tonight as we seek to continue to move Anderson Community Schools in the correct direction that I want, not only for my own personal family, but for all of us in this room and for our school community. So without further delay, I'm proud to have, as the person I've introduced, Dr. Christina Wright Fields. Thank you all.
In terms of your name, when you think about your name, many of us have an affinity to our respective names. I know I do. I don't know, I've been in the Hoosier State since 2002, and I've yet to meet another Genghis, and I'm comfortable with that. But at the same time, again, I embrace my name. I know from whence it's come, and how I, how I cherish it, so to speak. From the standpoint of one's name, it can in fact be connected with religious traditions, gender identity, ethnicity, your actual nationality, family history, as we've learned, as well as other cultural significance about an individual. So when you think about an individual's name and how they tend to embrace them, please keep that in mind as we interface not only with colleagues, but more importantly with our students.
And so we have a few learning outcomes for this workshop for our time here today. And some of the outcomes focuses on being able to, of course, differentiate between race and ethnicity, as well as engage in critical analysis during this workshop, and hopefully be able to apply what we're learning today into a practical, real-life situation. And so one of the first things I always do with my students, with faculty and staff at IU, is talk about developing an inclusive environment. And so these are a couple of rules that we developed as we developed this inclusive environment. So it's always important to listen. Make sure you challenge yourself to be respectful. Sometimes we may engage in uncomfortable situations. It's okay to have moments where we're silent. Sometimes that just means that we're reflecting. And always seek to understand. And I'm always, as we know, there is no dumb question, and disagreement is okay. So this is a little bit of the ground rules. And so we talked a little bit about identity. And so one of my questions I want to initially ask is, what identities did you bring with you today? What comes to mind when you think of identities? Did we bring any identities with us today?
I believe your orientation to reference really makes you comfortable to be able to discuss or entertain discussions in whatever orientations you have, and to what extent you have an orientation, your comfort level will either increase, or when you see individuals or interact with individuals, you'll be more apt to identify a commonality.
I think as we continue to proceed, we'll need to know some working definitions about race and ethnicity. Two important topics that sometimes are misunderstood, so we're going to take some time to unpack these particular terms. In terms of race, we describe that as a biological association. I'm sure by a show of hands, when I walked in, I would hope that you could tell that I'm an African American male. And so that, this evening, and henceforth, will be my race. And so that, in terms of race, we're talking about an outward appearance, biologically constructed. Race often talks about our physical characteristics. According to the Oxford Dictionary, race is defined as each of the major divisions of humankind having distinct physical characteristics, people of all races, color, and creeds. It goes on further to talk about, again, the significance of race in relation to larger groups, their religions and customs. These are identifying traits of a race of people. In terms of where they tend to intersect, often referenced as intersectionality, both of the concepts, again, race and ethnicity, interrelate, yet are commonly used interchangeably. Race, again, is a social construct, and whereas ethnicity refers to a people bound by common cultural traits. So when you think about, again, your classroom spaces, again, most oftentimes, there are two races that oftentimes will rise up in classroom settings. But in terms of the ethnicities that our students bring, those are equally significant. And so that is something, again, you want to keep in mind as you engage your students. And Tatum asserts that students' level of understanding and appreciation for differences is enhanced when they, again, have a firm and critical understanding of the difference between race and ethnicity.
Being 9 years old here in Anderson, Indiana, we were a very diverse community and we could go anywhere. But I took a ride to Talladega, Alabama to visit my aunts. And we stopped along at a fruit market and I had to go to the bathroom. And I trotted around and to the back of the place where the restroom was, and there was a sign there that said, colored only. And I asked my father, I said, what does that mean? He said, this is our bathroom. Over there it said whites. And I said, somebody in here. Can I go in there? No, you cannot go in. Then I knew there was a I mean, that stayed with me for the rest of my life. I mean, it was very stark. I had no real, I mean, I played with, you know, we were very integrated. But when we got to Alabama, there was clear lines on where you could go and where you couldn't go, and what you could do and what you could not do, and how you had to talk to people. That was an orientation for me. That was the ride back to Indiana was really brisk. There was a lot of questions got asked, you know, in the interchange, and our parents tried to answer them. But from that point to this point, I knew there was a distinct difference in the attitude of people based on race.
never had any problem with race. Of course, I knew who I was. And the point came by when I come to the point of ethnicity, when I accepted it, when I approved, and did not devalue myself based on major culture. I always knew there was a difference. And whether I put this term and that term to it at a certain time was important. What was important came along when I began to not marginalize, devalue myself, and begin to accept my culture and not hide from it or make excuses about something being better than I am. And I think that's the difference. One is you cannot deny when you come down to one, but you come up to ethnicity, you will have problems with, in terms of your cultural identification, in terms of disapproving of something that has been in my line for a long time. And those are the kind of things I see in terms of when you're going to accept it without devaluing yourself, because it's always clear. Any fool will open his eyes, know there's a difference. But then you have to come to the point, what do you accept?
We have 3 biological children, my husband and myself, and me wanting a daughter, we adopted a child who is biracial. She's black and she's white. And often when I go out, even yesterday at a grocery store, and I'm not going to say the grocery store, the cashier asked my daughter, she said, "Is this your mother?" Because she's very fair-skinned, you know, and my daughter said, "Yes, she's my mother." And I told the cashier, I said, "No, I kidnapped her," just, you know, being sarcastic. But we get it all the time, and when we first adopted her, she was 20 months. And we were walking out of a store, my husband and myself, he was holding her, and a gentleman in a nice sports car sat there in that parking lot until we got to the car, and my husband handed our daughter to me, and I said, "Well, let's put her in the car seat," and he said, "She has a car seat in that car?" I said, "Yes," and to this day, I still am questioning, who is that girl? And it's flip-flop, because when I came up, my mother was very fair-skinned, like my daughter, and they would often ask my mother, "Barbara Jean, where did you get those little black girls from?" And so, strangely enough, even though we come in all colors in the African-American race, some people still question when you have someone who's of a different race.
Think about it this way. If we remain silent in this space as the adults, the experts, the educators, there it is. How do we model for our students? Because they have to, you know, they have to engage in this conversation as well too. And they're doing it at an even younger age. I happen to be the proud father of a 4th grader. And we have conversations, 4th grade African-American son, my man-child. And so again, we have those critical conversations. Sometimes it hurts my heart that I have to talk about this at such an early age, but I think back, and I was having those same conversations with my parents as well. So we have to engage. There's no running away from the topic, and silence is okay, but let's make sure silence isn't deafening to the extent that we don't have anything to say to, again, move this discussion forward where it benefits our young people.
And you know, you always have to be willing to step out there and talk no matter what. Don and I worked at a school, we worked there for years together, and we were sitting here and we were talking about different experiences that we had. I'll never forget one time we had a bake sale, and I decided that the brownies were stale, and so I was going to take them back to the store. Packed them all back up, went back to the store with a big smile on my face. I handed it to happened to be the manager standing there, and I explained what was wrong with the brownies and everything, It was a whole line behind me and everything, and he looked at me and said, "Did you buy those with your food stamps?" And at the time, when he first said it, I just wanted the floor to open up, because it could have been some of my parents behind me, anybody. But why are you assuming that I bought them with food stamps? But I left the store, and I didn't say anything. But by the time I got back to the school, I thought, oh my, I let that pass. And I made a phone call. I think we ate brownies and cakes and things for the next month. On that store. They were bringing in stuff. They made him write me a letter of apology. He had to come to the school and read the letter. So I never had that problem before, not after that, not that kind of a problem. But we were also talking about, I teach alternative boys. When I was growing up, I'm dark complected. And I had cousins who lived in Anderson who were lighter. In Talladega, I have a whole group of cousins who are darker than I am. And when I saw them, and they looked pretty good, and I thought, well, being dark isn't so bad. Being light, like my sister here, is okay, but being dark, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Well, I have boys this year, and I hear them 40 years later, 50. Maybe I better say 40. It's truly 50. But 50 years later, they're having this conversation with, he's black, oh, look how black he is, and I was like, oh my gosh. And my lighter-skinned boys think that they're better than my darker-skinned boys, and I cannot believe it.
When I'm teaching in my class, and Black History Month comes, and I prepare handout and discussions and everything, I have kids ask me, why don't we have a Black History Month? And my first word that I give them is Eurocentric. And I talk about how for centuries that all the accomplishments and things were the credit was given to all the European people of European descent. And they are amazed to find out that the stoplight, that the brakes on the train, that the blood bank, and that a lot of other things have come about because of African American inventors and scientists and doctors. Okay, so that's my response to them.
Let's address the elephant in the room. What do we do to get to know each other? What situations do we create so that we can know each other? We don't do that. We don't do that anymore. It's part of orientation. Even in our families of orientation, even when we procreate and have our own families, we don't have any systems that allow us to know each other. We don't have those social points where we can engage each other anymore. When I grew up, it was a boys club. It wasn't no girls club. It was the YMCA. It was the church league basketball, where we got to know little Johnny, who happened to be white, Jose, who happened to be Mexican, and then we work those things out to get to know each other. We don't have that anymore. And this may come as a shocker to you, but the teachers at Hazelwood School that I embraced and who trained me, and I loved them like family, just happened to be white. And I learned a great deal from them, respected them, and it wasn't a situation where I had to have somebody black to teach me, to identify with. And I mean, this is the thing that catches me off guard, is that we talk about race, but what we don't do is create opportunities for us to sensitize each other to who we are, where we come from, what we value. We don't do that.
A lot of people think if you talk about race, you are prejudiced, or you are you don't want to fit in with anyone else. You think you're better than the other race. I teach 4th grade at Anderson Elementary School. And I am happy to say at our school, we try to embrace all cultures. Okay? We just had a Hispanic Heritage Month. We have Black History Month. We do Dr. King Month. We'll be doing Cinco de Mayo Month. Within our classroom, the teachers that I speak with, and all races of them. I believe that we are together. We are together. We have meetings. Our principal, who's sitting back there, Mr. Goins, we have program people. We come together to make sure all of our students feel like they are a part of our school. And they do. But in every part of any institution, you're going to have people who are indifferent. Everybody don't participate. Every single person doesn't participate. But we don't worry about that. Even within our classroom, I know the because I worked with the third graders last year and the fourth graders before, and the fifth grade teachers, we collaborate a lot. I'm happy when he mentioned about Black History Month, because if you go to a lot of the schools, elementary schools, a lot of them don't celebrate Black History Month. That's a month-long, you know what I'm doing? That's a month-long time to help our children, because let me tell you, I'm from Mississippi. And I tell my students, I just don't read about history, I lived it. I was in the cotton field in Mississippi when Dr. Martin Luther King came through with the march. We was chopping the cotton with the hoes, okay? And let me tell you, it was the most wonderful thing we had ever heard, because we had what we call true leaders back then. And that's what we need today. And I don't see that much. The teachers in the classroom are champions. And let me say this, I know I am, if you don't think you are. Because I talk to my kids. I talk to them. I talk to them about what it once was. And I talked about my second grade teacher. She was a Black lady who instilled in us dignity. She didn't allow us to let someone else define us, even at an early age. And I said, when I grew up, I want to be just like her. She was sort of mean, so kids think I'm sort of mean today. But that's all right, because I think I turned out okay. I may get a little carried away sometimes, so my principal lets me know sometimes. But at the same time, I love the kids. I have a good rapport with the kids. I talk about Black and white issues.
If nothing else, if every one of us in this room search our hearts and honestly say that every person sitting in this room has value and really mean it, because it's true.
It is true.
It's true. And then work on that idea and concept that whoever I'm looking at, they have value. I'm going to respect them. I'm going to get to know them. And I'm going to find out where our value systems are alike. And I'm going to build on that. If we could just walk away from here tonight and accept that fact, that everybody in this room has value, I think we'll be on to something. I really do.
This year, I have made a concerted effort since I began that I'm talking one-on-one to all my kids that I think will be good educators, but especially Black men and the young Black women. We have got so many talented kids that would be great in a classroom. And I'm asking for help. How do I encourage them? How do I, let them know that there will be a place for them and that they would be good? And I tell them, I said, you're already a leader. I said, if you do good things, everybody knows it. People follow you. Do it for good. And I've got a lot of kids that I'm trying to reach. And we need, like Randy said, we need them in the classroom. We need everybody teaching. We know that and we want that. Help us to achieve that.
Again, the case studies that you have on your respective tables, please do not make paper airplanes of those. Those can certainly serve as dialogue and discussion and action-oriented workshops in your educational spaces in your class. Also, I think it's been echoed tonight that talking about race does not make one of any particular race a racist. We need to know that. Again, we've affirmed in this space that talking about race is a good thing. It's beneficial. Race is not negative. It shouldn't always be viewed as negative in terms of a discussion prompt or a discussion topic. It is a critical piece of our human experience, as is that of ethnicities. That's equally valued, and we don't want you to leave here and not think that that portion of the conversation is not equally important. Honoring and embracing the ethnicities of individuals is equally as important as race. In terms of race and racial differences, they do matter. I mean, there's a lot of, again, talk, and we can certainly go another angle in time with respect to movements of a particular race. But again, we affirm here that all individuals, we're all part of the human experience. We do in fact matter, and I think that needs to be communicated in our daily work with our students, as well as our colleagues. And then, as was said, is that Mr. P? Is that okay? That's my buddy as well too, so we may have to share in terms of that, because I recruit, and it's a Herculean task to recruit underrepresented students to the teaching profession. So in that I'm in a space of talented educators, I want to challenge you to continue to be a champion for the profession. We have, not any of you, but we do have some naysayers that are driving future educators away from the profession. So you stand strong about this being still a noble profession, despite all the things that happen in our daily work lives. But again, to be a teacher is a noble thing, and our young people increasingly need to hear that, especially young males of color.
Dr. Wright-Fields and Mr. Carter, we appreciate the engagement and the candor that you have contributed to the workshop today. By defining race and ethnicity, it's been central to analyze how the majority and the minority identities are constructed. Rather than talking about the individual characteristics or personalities that are different, individuals should appreciate it in looking at more of the social identities. This workshop has been proactive in coming to grips with important changes taking place around the world, and especially after the recent presidential election, and how this will affect our students and our work environment. With our efforts, we share a mission to foster cross-corporation and dialogues without foregoing our own cultures. Today, I urge everyone not to give into darkness, of doubt, and fear. Instead, let us embrace the light that shines brightly within each of our hearts and minds. We must boldly and responsibly shine our lights. We can't continue to be silent when we see and encounter injustice of our human race. I personally wish to express my gratitude to you, for coming, and we wish you safe travels going back home. I would like to leave you with a token of our appreciation from the Diversity Council. Also, I would like to leave everyone with an Asian quote that I really like. He who understands other people has knowledge. He who understands himself is seeing clearly. Thank you all again. This is just the beginning of our cultural presentations that we'll be doing. We're developing a website and a calendar, and we'll be having events every month. So this is just the start. Thank you.